Hi, this is Steve from Steve3D, your indie development and game art channel. In this episode we will take a closer look at texture painting. Remember, this is a beginner's tutorial, so I will start with easy shapes and introduce a few basic rules for beginners to start. So the model will not look perfect, because I'm focusing on showing the whole workflow. As always, the more time you invest, the better your end result will look like. That being said, a beginner should be able to paint this texture in a few hours. First, let's open the table model we created earlier in this season of tutorial videos. If you need help applying the texture to your model, please have a look at the previous video where you learned how to set up everything to start painting on your model. Okay, now let's click on the texture paint at the top. With the table ready to paint, I would first start to create a color palette, like the one you can see here on the right. With this palette you can go back and forth between the colors easily. Let's start with the midtone brown for the table base color. Once we have set this, we won't turn off the lighting because this affects how our table is shown. We want to render it flat, so that we can take a look at our table, how it looks without light being applied. For this, we click at the top right and set the viewport shading to flat. Before you start painting, you should enable Z-axis mirroring, so that everything you paint is also painted on the bottom of the countertop. Then we start adding some color variations to the table, so that it doesn't look flat. This may take a while, so I speed up the video a little bit. Okay, that's fine for the first pass. We will refine this later if necessary. What we do next is we paint blanks. We do this freehand, so there's some variation. Like this. Okay, this is fine for a rough sketch. Now we start adding props. So I add a crack here at the right lower corner. I will only add this one or maybe a second one to show you how you can do this. I highly recommend that you create more of them to practice a bit. I do also a quick pass around the table sides to create some color variation here as well. And at the same time I do a first rough outline for the blanks. On the edge here I create also another crack just to show you how to do it. Now let's restart to refine the blanks themselves. First I do some testing on it if I like the colors. Then I do some knots in the banks where the branches did grow outwards. This gives a first impression on how the wood grains will flow. Now, depending on the resolution and from how far away the table will be looked at, you might also add some more details. I do it for this one knot here to show you how to do it. Since I will use this from far away, I don't really need it. Next I do the outline for the wood grain. I will use different densities to show you how they will look. Generally speaking, we can say the closer you are to the table, the more details you need. In our case, the rightmost is too much, so I will overpaint it quickly. I also add wood grain to the sides here. I don't enable the axis mirror for this because the sides will look differently. A quick side note. Sometimes it is hard to see the edges. If this happens, you can enable cavities in your viewport options on the right upper corner. Now I trace the edges to add a first highlight. Afterwards, I use the same color to add some wear and tear to the edges. Okay, that's the first pass on our table. At this point you always have to ask yourself if it does the job or if you need to refine it even more to make it look better. The truth is, you can invest the next 2 days in refining and the texture will get better and better. But as always, time is money and you have to decide how far you take it. For this video we have to save time, so I will go ahead with the feet. But before I start, I will highly recommend that in your workflow you do all steps at the same time. Yes, it might be repetitive and boring to do all the base colors before refining and so on, but it is a lot easier to stay consistent with your color scheme. I separated it in this video to show you what can happen and how to fix it. Now let's do the feet. We first also start with the base color. When you have a round object like the feet, you will recognize that it is hard to apply the base color because of the shape of the feet. If this happens to you, I recommend to give painting on the texture file a shot. As you can see, it is a lot easier to do it that way. After I have established the base color, I do the knots as I did it for the countertop. Since I think the feet are glued together, I will mask away the other faces, so that I do one face after the other, without overpainting anything. After a pass on the knots, I do another pass to create the wood grain. You can also do this on the object or on the texture, whatever suits you more. Since I still have a mirror modifier on the feet, I have to do it only once. Again, if it is a game asset where you look from far away to the table, this will be more than enough. If you do a close-up render, you can do it one by one. But since you always look from different perspectives to the different feet, it should look okay. Next we will trace the edges for the highlight. Since we are below the countertop where we don't have the same amount of light, we bring down the highlights a bit in a second pass. We also want to add a little gradient to the feet to emphasize a bit that the lower part is hit by light and the upper part is in the shadow of the countertop. There we go. If you now compare the countertop to the feet, you will recognize that the colors don't match exactly. There are a few ways how you can prevent this from happening. First, you might create a base coating for the countertop, which is the biggest part in our case. You can then save it as a base texture and apply it to all parts. This also works well if you have to texture a lot of different props using the same material. For example, if you have to do an inn for a game, you might want to have the same base for different tables, chairs, bars, barrels and so on. In our case, we could also have done the feet and the countertop in parallel. But what if it is too late for this? There's an easy solution. You can just do a hue shift. In the drop-down above the view, we can select different color modification tools. In our case, we work with the saturation to rework the colors a bit. You can see how the feet immediately come closer to our desired look. You might need several passes until it matches, but it should be doable. You can use this also to create different moods for your surroundings. Maybe an inn is somewhere in the slums and you want to make the inn look a little bit more dirty. Using this you can desaturate your assets a bit to match it better to the surroundings. Or you just use it as I do to create some shadow on the lower side of the countertop. I hope this helps you and gives you a good starting point on your journey to learn texture painting. If this video was helpful, please leave a like. If you want to get informed whenever I release new content, please subscribe and press the bell button. See you in the next episode. Bye!